Do you feel frustrated trying to grow your franchise? Are you having trouble balancing your consumer and franchise development marketing? Do you wish there was an easier way? Imagine if you had a proven roadmap to take your franchise's marketing from costing you to making you money. That's why we've created the Franchise Growth Blueprint. We walk you through the exact same process that we use to run franchise marketing campaigns for our clients at scale that has resulted in triple-digit growth. This blueprint isn't for anyone. It's not for people just starting a franchise. It's not for franchises without long-term goals. This is for franchises that want to scale up their marketing in a predictable and profitable way using a proven roadmap. If you want to sell more franchises, keep your current franchisees happy, and learn from people who have already done it, go to franchisegrowthblueprint.com and sign up today. That's franchisegrowthblueprint.com. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of the Franchise Marketing Podcast. Today, I have Gary Prenevost, the president of FranNet of Southern Ontario and Eastern Canada. Gary, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here.
So for our listeners who don't know you, could you tell them a bit more about what you do?
Well, I am one of Canada's leading franchise matchmakers. What we do is we help prospective franchisees to we reverse engineer their business model, we introduce them to specific franchise options, and we coach them on the research so they can figure out which franchise to buy. We've worked with over 2,000 franchise candidates, and over 600 of them have proceeded with purchase.
Wowza. So you are just a library of information, and it sounds like you've been in the industry for a while.
I've been at it in franchising for 30 years, been on every side of the franchise table, Jordan. So yeah, I've seen a lot. And I'm also on the board for the CFA, so I bring a lot of perspective.
Very cool. And, most recently you moderated a panel on how to choose a franchise broker and franchise network to work with. So I'd love to hear some of your learnings that you've gotten from moderating that panel and your experience over the past 30 years.
I think that there's a lot of different areas that, let's say, assumptions of what broker groups are and are not. If we maybe start by clearing up some of the assumptions. One is that brokers are exclusive. There are exclusive franchise sales agents. They're usually on contract and they look after the entire sales cycle. So they're actually an on-contract sales force. That's not who we are. Any of the broker groups, the major broker groups, and there's 6 to 8 major groups, of which FranNet and FranChoice are the two leading ones. We are non-exclusive. We call them third-party referral networks. So we do all of our marketing, all of our efforts to find candidates who are interested in franchising. We work with franchisors that are pre-approved and pre-selected. So we make sure that and then we know what the franchisors are looking for. When we find what the franchisees are looking for, we bring those two together. That's the first part of our work. From there, then our real work is coaching the franchise prospect through all aspects of research. And that includes sometimes interacting with the franchisor to guide them on where to specifically address speed bumps in the sales process. So it's really streamlining. It's interesting. Keith Gerson of FranConnect and Dan Monahan, both today on the Canadian Franchise Association session, talked about portals, which is one of the primary sources for buying leads online. The effectiveness rate is 1 in over 300. I think it was around 360. Broker leads are the number one, and broker leads and referrals are the number 1 and number 2 leading sources right now, and 1 in 20. So it's a huge, huge difference. So when people are looking, franchise development teams are looking at what the source of my leads are and how do I get the right leads. It's not just where the leads are coming from. How much time do I have to invest in processing all those leads? So our best franchisors, our partners, 1 in 8 buy, and our average is 1 in 12. So we're actually better than the industry average. I think that's assumption number 1. Assumption number 2 is that we're expensive. Well, as that Mano had said today, compared to what, you anybody looking at the total cost of lead, it's not the cost of lead that matters. It's the cost of acquisition of the franchisee. So if it takes 100 leads and you're paying $40 a lead, that's one element of the cost. But how much time does it take to work with all those 100? That's another time. It's a soft time commitment, but there's a cost to that. So whatever it is, now it's 300, not 100. So there's that component. I saw a number about, I think it was about 2.5 years ago. Average franchise system in Canada, best in class cost of acquisition was around 12,500. Average was around 14,500 to 15,000. That's just on the cost of the leads, not the cost of time. So when you look at what the brokers networks charge, it's a slight premium over that number. So it's a lot more affordable than people think, and it's a lot more efficient now than people think. But the third element, I think, an assumption is that anybody can join a broker network. Some franchise broker networks will let anybody in. Ours, we are more selective. We want brands. There's certain criteria that we have. But just because you're in, it doesn't mean you're going to get the leads. And I think the most important messages for your audience today is how important it is to build a relationship with the brokers, the individual brokers, so they understand your business model, they understand who your ideal and your optimum franchisee is, they understand who you don't want. And it's not just skills and criteria. If you don't know the minimum liquidity that your franchisees need and your minimum net worth to have a suitable buffer, that's important to figure out, and it's important for us. So I'll stop there for now, because I can go on for a while.
Very, very interesting, Gary. So I want to follow up with you on that third point about building a relationship with the brokers. What do you see being the best way to and nurture those relationships over the long term?
Well, there's a few different things. Number one is when the relationship starts, have an overview discussion. Like this should be a formal discussion where you, as the franchisor, have got a PowerPoint deck or a structured conversation to walk us through who you are. It's no different than you would do with a franchise prospect, other than you'll give us more information about unit economics and things like that. We're not allowed to share it with the franchise prospect, but we need to understand your model so we can make sure our clients can achieve their goals through working with you. So who is the franchisor? Who is the leadership? What is, a little bit about the history and why does the business model work? Unit economics, and as I just said, who you're looking for, things like that. And then an important element for me is knowing what territory markets you're trying to fill. And the more mapped out an area is, the easier it is for me to see whether it's units sold or awarded or open. So that gives me a foundation. Then as I start sending you clients as the franchisor, the first few clients, it's a little bit of a beta test. I think this is a good fit for you. I've had franchisors who, great, they take the lead and I don't hear anything about how well the fit was. Whereas my best relationship franchisors, yeah, Gary, we've had a couple of calls with them. We're still taking them through process, but this wasn't quite who we had in mind. And they fine tune our perception of who they're looking for. And in also doing, Jordan, they're telling us who they don't want. Because that's why we get to a 1 in 8, 1 in 12 close rate, because we're only sending them the right people. We're not going to send them a lot of people. We're going to send them the right people. The other part, and if there's one thing your audience takes away from this today, the more structured their franchise sales process is, the more it aligns with our process. So I have franchisors who, yeah, we'll have a call with them, we'll give them an overview, and we'll have another call, and we'll see where it goes from there. And that's the less experienced the franchisor or the franchise development team is, that's pretty common. The more structured it is, so call one is an overview call. Let's get to know each other. This is you and the franchise prospect. Then it might be a series of 3 or 4 calls or webinars, whatever your structure is. Call one, we're going to talk about marketing. Call two, we're going to talk about training and support. Call three, we're going to tech, whatever, there's 4 or 5 major components that by the end of 3 to 4 weeks, the franchise prospect knows a lot about the business model and you, instead of one big blurb that, oh, gee, they're interested. I got time. They got time. Let's have a long conversation. They've forgotten everything except the first 20 minutes. So structure it out and give them homework in between. Then I can, as a franchise broker, coach my client through that. And each week, and this is the key important part with working with a broker, each week that they are doing the calls with you, they are also talking with us. And I'm hearing what they like, what they don't like, what the concerns are. Now I'm circling back with you and, hey, they like the marketing, but they missed this part. You need to spend more time on that. Speed bump comes up. We get you over the speed bump or the client over the speed bump. Instead of 11th hour, you think they're ready to sign and they go, yeah, you know what? We don't think it's right for us. And yet it's like 3 months in and you hit that. So we remove those barriers along the way.
I love that. Now, I'm curious, what do you see the common speed bumps being for franchises in that sales process?
Oh man, it is so different with each franchisor. The I think one of the biggest ones is the financial, understanding the financial. By law, franchisors and we cannot give the franchise prospect any more information that's in the earnings plan. But people have to get financial information to make decisions. So how do they encourage the fulfillment of that? It could be, again, best in class franchisors give my clients a standard template. It's unpopulated, but here are the revenue line items. If you have 4 major categories of revenue, each one of those categories, here's your line items, each expense item. Like this is what is your chart of accounts you're giving your franchise. You don't give them a chart of accounts, but you give them the line items. Their homework is to go and populate it. And to get their accountant to review it, not you as a franchisor to review it, because otherwise you're bordering on earnings claim. So this is the getting that financial information, who are there, and then working with validation. A lot of franchisors, especially young franchisors, we get them to that process that I just finished talking about. We get them through all this stuff, and okay, here's the disclosure document. Here's the franchise application. When are you ready to sign? No, they have to be able to talk to existing franchisees. The franchisee validation stage is where franchise sales are made or lost. So we want the franchisees to talk to 6 to 10 franchisees. You might think that talking to 2 or 3 is enough. That gets the questions going. It's by franchisee 8, they've got most of the questions answered. So I think getting through validation and helping them understand the financing. So to finish answering the question, understanding how to get and keep customers is another common area of speed bump. If you're not spending enough time helping them understand that, it is, and I'll say it this way, when I do my public seminars to prospective franchisees, it is not the franchisor's job to get you clients. It is the franchisor's job to give you a business model, part of which is marketing execution strategy. It is your job as the franchisee to fulfill that. So as a franchisor, help them to understand how they're going to do that.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I love that. So you hit on a really great point about how influential speaking to other franchisees already in the system is. So how do you, as a franchisor, set up a successful conversation between prospects and pre-existing franchisees?
Stay out of it. Legally, they should stay out of it. Mm-hmm. They can foster relationships. The bigger the franchise, the more people there are to validate. I have some franchisors who will, who's okay with being on the validation list for the next 3 months. And people will go on and off the franchise. Some franchisors say, call anybody. Other franchisors say, start with these 3, and then we'll give you more as you get further. So it's really what the culture of your brand and your franchisor relationship is that has to play into that answer.
Okay, very cool. Now zooming out a bit, is there a specific stage of franchise growth where it is a better fit to work with brokers than not. We'll get right back to the show, but do you feel frustrated trying to grow your franchise? Are you having trouble balancing your consumer and franchise development marketing? Do you wish there was an easier way? Imagine if you had a roadmap to take your franchise's marketing from costing you to making you money. That's why we've created the Franchise Growth Blueprint. To find out more, visit franchisegrowthblueprint.com. That's franchisegrowthblueprint.com. Now back to today's episode.
The micro emerging 0 to 10 franchisees is the most difficult time for growth, because clients are coming to us, they want systems franchising being more proven. So when young franchises are in the franchisors, they're in that alpha test and beta test of how well their system works. We will still work with companies like that, provided that the franchisor is strong and the business model is strong. But most brokers won't work with models where the alpha test, the franchisee is the alpha test. So prove your model, get a couple of economic cycles, 1 or 2 years under that model. Then the brokers will find that more appealing. The 10 to 50 franchisee range, that is where, and then the 50 to 200 range, that's where the vast majority of transactions are. 10 to 50, a different type of buyer. I want something somewhat proven, but I want first crack or early crack at the market. 50 to 200, I want some stability, right? So these are different things. Past 200, it might be a franchisor that's open in a region, that they're moving into a new region, that what's the fastest way to get into that? Because they think to understand about the brokers, it's not just the advertising we do, it's the database. Like I've got a very large database, and I have key relationships where when I broadcast something, I get them to broadcast to their relationship. So I'm reaching thousands of people on a specific market. So part going back to the franchisor and broker relationship in that early setup call, what are things we can do to make people aware? And we've structured, I don't know, a lunch and learn or a specific, there's things we can do to promote the brand.
Mm-hmm. And you alluded to a really great point that's been a hot topic on previous episodes here is, as you grow as a system, inevitably the types of franchisees that you award to changes. I'd love to hear, what are your thoughts on that? And how does the relationship between a franchisor and a broker change as well as you grow?
From personal experience, having had over 110 franchisees, the first 3 franchisees, a check, we got one, right? Very quickly, franchisors recognize heartbeat and checkbook school of recruiting is a bad idea, because you're letting people in, not letting the right people in. So the amount of time to get the right franchise, if you think they're a good fit, say no. If you know they're a good fit, say yes. Because the amount of time you're going to spend after awarding a franchise, solving the problems and supporting somebody who wasn't a fit, it's just a nightmare. And that's where a lot of problems and litigation come from the franchise system down the road, which also hurts franchise sales. So some franchisors get it at about 10 to 15. Some people take about 30 before they're there. The more in demand the brand is, the more aware, in other words, the more aware the customer is with what the product or service is, the more likely the franchisor is going to have more candidates than they have opportunity. So if they want to be rapid growth, it's going to take them longer. If they want to be strategic growth, they're going to say, okay, great that we got all these people. Who will we only let in? So it's a franchise awarding process. It's not a franchise sales process.
I love that. I love that. It's such an important shift of mindset, going from, sales, another one, to awarding it and being, essentially being picky with who you bring into the system. So switching gears a bit.
Just as a follow-up to that, my best-in-class franchisors have, not all of them, a few of them have an exit interview, CEO to candidate, before we sign up. Why are you the right fit for us? Why should we award a franchise to you? And it is there are certain expectations that the franchise candidate has to answer operationally, personally, culture, whatever it is. Know why you're letting somebody in.
I love that question. Um, one question that I always love to ask is, what advice would you give someone just starting out as a franchisor?
In what can you be a bit more specific? In what area?
In any area. So that you see most franchisors needing help in.
Um, Prove the model. Like, it's not you have an idea, and let's franchise it, or you have one location, let's franchise, but we're going to franchise with a different prototype than our main location. If it's a franchise, if it's franchisable, well, um, demonstrate to your future growth that you have proven it out enough that people have something to look at, and that you're going to be, with that experience that you've created, you can talk with an entire different level of conviction and confidence. And further, you also know, because of the pain of going through that journey, that who you're looking for that much better. So that would be number one. Number two, and this is so simple, but I see it happen so often, is they do not define minimum net worth and minimum liquidity. If it's a $250,000 franchise, okay, hey, $100,000 of your own, the financing can be rest, net worth of 300, let's go. At least double the net worth for what the total investment is. People need that buffer. It's been my experience that the vast majority, remember, 600 plus deals, the vast majority of my clients invest no more than 30 to 40% of their total net worth, including lending. So if you don't have clarity on what your buffer is and what's needed, you're probably letting people in who are going to end up undercapitalized and really suffering, or worse, closing. And that's a black eye or a stab wound you don't want.
Very interesting. Very interesting. What other things? Actually, you know what? Let me rephrase this question, because this has also been brought up a lot from a cultural perspective. What types of things, questions, homework, what have you, through the awarding process, should you be asking? Should you be doing in order to maintain your franchise culture?
There's a few different ways that this can go, or I can answer. The culture, there's two cultures that you as a franchisor need to be aware of. Franchisor to franchisee is what everybody automatically defaults to. What about franchisee to franchisee? What is the peer-to-peer culture that you're looking for and that you're trying to foster as you grow your organization? Is it inclusion and collaboration, or is it do as I say and just follow and leave the other franchisees alone? That ends up being toxic over time. So if you're trying to create that collaborative culture, then ask questions or watch for how they interact with you, and what have they done in their past, in their career, to be that culture or community player. Community engagement is one of the most important things in customer development, whether it's a bricks and mortar franchise, a B2B, a B2C service. If their franchisee is not involved in engaging with that community, there's the geographic community, there's the faith community, there's the ethnic community. There's several communities that are part of where they're going to be. And each one of those is a growth opportunity. So part of the culture of the individual is how they engage with others. The culture of franchisor to franchisee, we have on our assessment a compliance ratio. Out of 20, the higher the score, the more structure you like. And I score 6 out of 20 on that score. So I don't like structure. Well, if you are a highly structured franchise, like a bricks and mortar retail where it's very operationally structured, you're wanting somebody who's going to be a 14 to 16 out of 20 on that, because you don't want them reinventing stuff. But if you're a system that you don't have that structure and you provide certain areas, but they have a lot of operational latitude, like a B2B coaching franchise or other service franchise, you want a moderate to slightly low score. So how they show up is part of the culture of how much structure you have. Restate the question again, because there's a few other thoughts that came in, please.
Sure. It was how do you vet for culture during the franchise awarding process?
Um, who are you? And like this is, tell me about who you are and what have been your career and life accomplishments. It's such a powerful question. And listen, are they talking about themselves and how great and wonderful they are? Are they talking about their contribution, or just that will be clues? And it's not just one conversation. A good franchise development officer, franchise salesperson is listening on every call for new clues. And if I segue into technology for a moment, exactly what we're doing today. Folks, if you are not using video on your calls, like every call with a prospect, stop not doing that. We're getting, because of COVID, that's one of the advantages that this is forced, is it's getting us to look at using video. You are seeing communication cues. If they are not comfortable, that's okay for a little while, but at some point, hey, we got to switch to video calls because we got to get to know each other. And so I rarely have a call now with any client without it being on video. I want to see the full communication cycle. I want to know what lands and does not land.
I love it. Yeah, there's something that you just lose even if it's just audio, and even more if it's email, right? Like you don't have that tone, you don't have those auditory or visual cues, as you mentioned, to understand what's going through their head and all of those important things during that awarding process.
And how they show up is part of the clue to culture.
Totally. So Gary, I've been just picking your brain with information. However, we're coming up on our time. So I like to end all of our episodes with something I call the lightning round. So it's just a few fast-paced questions coming at you. Are you ready?
Yep.
Sounds good. So first question is, what is your favorite tool or app that you cannot live without?
Oh boy. Waze. Tells me where the cops are.
Awesome. Second question, what is your favorite book?
There's a couple. E-Myth Revisited, mandatory reading for every franchisee. Blue Ocean Strategy, really good on thinking, like just expanding into new markets. And a third is let's stop at two. I've got too many books to be favorites.
Sounds good. Next one is, who is a franchise leader that you look up to?
Dan Monahan.
Great guy. And last question, I promise, where can people find out more about you and your company?
My probably best www.frannet.com. That's FRANNET.com. Email me personally. My role is education to clients and to franchisors. Any franchisor who is wanting to know more about this, this is part of my work on the CFA board as well. I'm an advocate for the industry. So I'm here to help you learn and grow. I'm happy to have conversations that, even if it's not going to go anywhere, it's helping you become a better franchisor.
Awesome. Well, Gary, thank you so much for coming on. You shared a mind-bogglingly wealth of information here. So thank you so much.
As an offer, if there's more, if you want, poll your audience, and if there's a bunch of specific questions you want me back to answer those questions, or even a live session, I don't know. It's like, but I welcome the opportunity.
Totally, will do. Well, thank you so much, Gary.
You're welcome. Stay well.
You as well.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Franchise Marketing Podcast. If you found this episode useful, share it with a friend and subscribe now so you don't miss out on any upcoming episodes. And until then, happy marketing.